Hi, my name is Ava,
And I'm Eileen.
and welcome to Harping Around.
This is part two of our topic of polishing pieces. And today we have a special guest, Jeremy Chesman.
Part one featured Abigail Kent, who talked about her experiences in competition prep, so go check that out if you haven't already.
I caught up with Jeremy the other day to talk about polishing pieces, and he had a lot of great advice. Check it out. Today, I have the honor of being able to talk with Jeremy Chesman about polishing pieces today. Jeremy, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jeremy Chesman, and right now I serve several roles in the Harp Society. I'm the treasurer this year, and I'm also on the executive committee, and I work with the North Central region as well too. And I'm on several other different committees related to that. And I'm a harpist living in Springfield, Missouri, and I teach at Missouri State University um, and play harp for all sorts of things down here in Springfield, which is why I'm wearing all black because I have a concert later tonight.
Oh, well, best of luck with your concert tonight, Jeremy. And thank you for your service for everything that you do for the Harp Society.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. It's been a fun organization to get to be a part of, and I think there's a lot of different kinds of harpists, and it's great that we can just feature some of the things. And I'm real happy to talk, and I'm excited about this podcast, and um, yeah, ready to get going.
All right. Well, my first question for you, Jeremy, is I know a lot of harpists, when they first hear the phrase polishing pieces, it might not be necessarily clear as to what is meant by that. So, for polishing a piece, what is exactly does that entail for you, and how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, I think there's lots of stages of learning. We're all familiar with that first stage of learning where we're just getting the notes down and trying to play everything at the right time. For me, I think what the polishing really means is um, transitioning from that I'm learning the notes and practicing and transitioning from that into the performance. And so part of it, what it has to do is those little technical things that you didn't quite get before. Where like, oh, that sometimes I get this arpeggio or sometimes I don't. Well, you want to make sure you get it in the performance. So I think there's technical polishing, and then I think there's polishing that is more artistic polishing. Where you just like when you're polishing some furniture or something, you want it to make it as beautiful as it can. So the structure is still there, but you're just putting that final glow on it. And so that's there. So there's, I think, in my approach, I kind of have those technical things that I still need to work on, but then I also try to take it beyond that and figure out what is it that I want to do with this piece and what's my special take on this piece that makes me different from what somebody else does.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, and that is a very good approach too, especially making the piece your own and I guess kind of putting your fingerprint in the polish on the way
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want
because
to
I
use
think, like at some point, I'm sure computers will be able to play all the right notes on a harp or something. You know what I mean? We have like all these things that are just automated, and so why does somebody want to hear what I have to play as opposed to hearing a CD or hearing a MIDI generated thing? So I think that human touch and that personal touch is good. I know it's great to listen to other recordings to get ideas, but at the end, I really encourage my students and for myself, figure out how you want to play it, and come up with your own voice because I think that that's a really the fun part about being a musician. Well, there's lots of fun parts, but that's the funnest, I think.
it certainly is. And for that personal interpretation, how do you decide on exactly how you want to polish a certain section of a piece to be? And especially on a passage where there might be multiple different ways a musician could interpret how best it could be played.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. Everyone has, their own process. Um, for me, well, because I teach theory, this is part of one of the reasons probably because I'm a theory teacher. I really think about the whole structure of the piece and like, well, why is this here? What's the purpose of this? If I'm repeating the A section again, okay, well, maybe then I want to play it a little bit different than the first time. Or is this a transition section that's leading to a big climax or something, well, then that'll tell me that I want to maybe get a little faster or get a little louder and build. So it's always important to think about where this is going and what the function of each section is in the big work to see how it all fits in. And I think a lot of us take time to think about the notes a lot, but we don't really think what we want to do with them. And so it's worth giving a little bit of effort for that. And I also like to really encourage people. I think people have good instincts in general. So a lot of times people will have a great interpretation the first way that they play something. But I sometimes like to encourage my students to look at other ways that they could perhaps play it. And just that, I think that helps drive the creative process a little bit. Like, well, what's another way you could play it? Or what's another way? Even if you're not going to take all of those, I mean, there's obviously you can only do one in a performance, right? But sometimes I tell people, don't just go for the first way because that's like the low hanging fruit, but see if there's another way you can do it or another way. And try one that's just like totally off the wall, like make your dynamics really a big contrast or do something that's just maybe a little bit tacky. You can put your toe on the line of tacky every once in a while, and it's very expressive. So so I like to play around a lot when I'm working on things. Another thing that I often do is incorporate movement. I try to move the piece, and so I have that feeling of the way that the phrase moves. I'm actually at the Institute this summer. Everybody, you can now register for the Institute, so do that. But I'm actually giving a workshop on how to incorporate movement into your harp teaching and your harp playing to kind of get that the longer phrases and the feelings of the ups and downs. So I do like it to do a lot of movement related things, and then the analysis, and then just trying it out and playing it and recording it some different ways. I'll just with everybody everyone has their phone now, so you can just take a little section and record it, and then go back and listen to it and say, oh, that I tried something new and that worked, or you could say I tried something new and it really didn't work, but that's okay. That's how you figure out. And you want to do that, I think, in the practice room rather than obviously in the performance room. But give yourself some opportunities to figure out what it could be. Yeah.
I really like that, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of like going on a treasure hunt, looking for that gem of interpretation that
Yeah.
one really likes. And it's something that could always change over the years. There's some pieces where I've heard performers say, "Oh, I used to always play it this way, took a break from it, and now I don't play it that way anymore. I found this way that is so much better."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm playing two pieces on a recital in April, and I played them in college, many like last century, and I play them differently now, which is good because I hope, and I hope this for my students, I hope this for myself and for everybody that they're not the same musician that they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, because that's sort of like the life of the artist is just to keep looking for ways that you can continue to grow as a musician, and hopefully your playing should change because you interpret them differently. And I remember when I was in college and everyone said, "Oh, you'll play things differently later on." And now that I'm looking back and playing pieces that I used to play before, I'm noticing that's true, and it's actually kind of fun to revisit these pieces that I worked on so hard, a few years ago, and just approach them with a different set of ears and a different life experience.
That makes complete sense. And I know expectations can be so different, most obviously from the practice room to any kind of performance setting, but even from performance setting to performance setting, because I know there is a huge difference between performing, say, at a nursing home versus the expectations there are in a concert setting versus in the recording booth versus at a competition.
Right.
So my question for you, Jeremy, is how do you go about preparing and polishing pieces for these different situations and the different expectations that come along with each?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because obviously, like in a nursing home, you're not going to program your loudest, most bombastic repertoire. You can have some of that, but not too much. And so yeah, it's important, to think about the venue, and to think about what people are interested in. With a recording, it's really important to get the notes really right, because that's saved for posterity. In a performance, of course you want the notes to be right, but you know, if a few notes here and there are missed or something, it's easily overlooked by people, because they're listening to the whole thing in that experience. And so the times that I have done recordings, I actually don't like it, because people don't come to a Jeremy Chesman show to hear all the right notes. They come here to hear some great music, and I do the best I can with the notes. I'm not like forgetting all my notes, but that's not my main thing. So a recording or a competition, if you're missing notes, that's going to get noticed. But for me, what's really important is to focus on the musical expression and the idea behind everything. So that's why I never really fared well in competitions, and I didn't really like them, because it just doesn't really fit for me. So I think it's important to remember that, like, it's okay if things don't always fit for you, if that's not your venue, but just to be mindful of it. And so if I'm going to be doing like a recording, which I have done a few recordings, and when I'm doing them, you spend a lot more time on the technical aspects. We talked about the polishing. I would spend a lot more effort on the technical aspects. And it doesn't mean I would neglect the musical aspects, but for those, it's going to be really important. But I think, on the total flip side of that, like in a nursing home, that would be the sort of thing where it's really about the human connection and the expressiveness that you can play with, and do you have something to say or something worth saying. And so for that, of course, just like it's just the opposite. We're going to probably focus more on like really putting some meaning into the pieces that we're picking and how we're playing. But if you miss a note, I think people in a nursing home might have other things to worry about than all the right notes. But if the overall picture is that you're communicating something of beauty and adding some meaning to life and to the world, then I think that's really the goal there. So I think it's okay to realize, not that you're ever going to neglect one or the other totally, but at different times, I think it's important to recognize that sometimes one might be more important than the other. So and really, if I'm playing for an event like that, or for like a wedding or a church service, then I really try to pick things that I know will sort of grab people's heartstrings more than somebody looking at the score and making sure I played the right notes. I just played a Valentine's Day. We're recording this a few days after Valentine's Day, and I played a Valentine's Day thing, and I mean, I've played for 4 hours, so I obviously can't practice 4 hours of music note perfect. But I really took some time to pick some things that I thought people would like, and people, a lot of people really seemed to come up and notice, and they liked my variety, but they also liked that. I played a lot of course, love songs and popular love songs, and I was kind of singing them in my head when I did it, like I was really doing it. And I think that really helped the connection to the people. So nobody cares that I missed a pedal here once in a while, because I covered it up okay, but that wasn't the point. Nobody leaves and hopefully it says, oh, they got all the right notes. If that's the most that somebody could say about my concert, I did something wrong.
Yes, that really is truly at the heart of what it means to be a musician, and especially with an instrument like the harp
Right.
that does command such a presence and really can connect on an emotional level to an audience in a way that many other instruments cannot. And that's a wonderful way of approaching it for the technical versus the musical, and finding that balance where necessary.
Yeah. And I think just giving ourselves permission to say, like, the notes aren't going to be perfect, but that doesn't mean that the recital or the performance is not going to be worthwhile. You know what I mean? And just because this is recording, I'm just to be clear, I'm not saying don't play the right notes. Please play the right notes as best you can. But accurate playing isn't the only game in town. I would rather hear somebody play and not be 100% accurate, but be worth listening to. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they have a point of view and they're bringing it to the music, and they're communicating that. I think that's what's important to me. And somebody else might value something different. That's okay. Maybe people really love notes. That's good for them.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with me today, Jeremy. And we've had a lot of really great things that you've shared with us today. Now, before we go, is there anything else that you would like to tell everybody?
Um, well, it's probably clear, but I think we become musicians because we love it, and then sometimes we get so worried about some things when we're learning pieces, and we're worried that it's not going to be perfect, that we forget that we love playing music. And so, just to keep music fun and remember why you got into it, and if you keep that meaning in your life and in your approach to your playing, then it just makes every time you play the harp, it just makes it an artistic experience. And that's what's more, I think, at the end of the day, that's what's going to stick with people and be memorable for them. So I encourage people to remember that they love music.
Yes, and I'm sure everybody watching here obviously loves music too. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for taking the time to do this with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for listening.
We hope you enjoyed this episode as well as part one of our topic of polishing pieces. If you have any comments, suggestions, ideas for future episodes, or even if you would like to come on and join us to talk, feel free to leave a comment below or email us at harpingaround@harpsociety.org. See you next time.